There's something that I have to say, and it has really been weighing on my mind. And I've been wondering if I should say it because the people of Texas are really going through it right now. And I didn't want to be a distraction to the folks of Texas. I waited a little bit, but I I am outraged. Number one, by the response that this administration has had and the lack of accountability. And number two, I've been outraged really by the media coverage. I know it's always really easy to blame the media, and I hated that, especially when I was in legacy media, traditional media. But this one is, I think, needs to be said, okay? And I just want to be clear about this. And I wrote about this on Substack. I just want to be clear. From the very first sentence, it says Texas is drowning. So is American journalism. Texans are dying. The government is lying. And the media, too many are too afraid to say it out loud. Okay. And I just had to do this because I believe this to be true. And I start by saying, let's just be clear from the very first sentence. This disaster in Texas didn't just happen. It wasn't just the weather. It wasn't just an act of God. This catastrophe, this deadly, devastating tragedy has left hundreds dead and missing, was made worse by choices, by deliberate, calculated actions from the Trump administration. So I don't want to say, oh my God, this is blame everything on the media. I also want to say, I know that the Trump administration does not control the weather. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene may think that, that the weather is controlled by, the deep state. The Jewish space lasers and all of that. I'm not that dumb to think that. But this administration gutted FEMA. That's what I mean by accountability and what's happened here. They slashed funding for NOAA. They stripped disaster preparedness programs to the bone while pumping billions into DOGE is what they did it. Billions into DOGE, the so-called Department of Government Efficiency, which has become little more than a slush fund for political revenge and favors. What did they find? DOGE did not find that. They didn't save anything. If you look at the reporting and the math, they didn't. Look at the devastation on your screen of what's happening in Texas. Look at that. Imagine what the people there are dealing with. This White House set the stage for this disaster. They ignored warnings about heat, about flooding, about the collapse of critical infrastructure. And now, guess what they're doing? Now they are hiding behind press conferences and photo ops while Texans mourn. And yet somehow, too many in the media, and I'm being honest here, they're afraid to say that out loud. I want to take you to Texas right now because I want you to feel and see, and I want you to see the impact of the decisions from this administration, the impact that how it is affecting people. So let me just take you to Texas right now. Families are burying their their loved ones after days of triple-digit heat, after days of blackouts and flash floods that swallowed entire communities. 27 children were killed at Camp Mystic in Kerr County. Over 160 people are still missing. Elderly residents were found dead in their homes, overcome by heat, drowned by rising waters, abandoned by the very system designed to protect them. Parents held their children close as temperatures soared, waiting for rescue teams that never arrived. Kind of reminds you of something, right? Doesn't that remind you of something? I'll get to that part later. Kind of reminds you of something. And what did the state and federal officials do? Well, they held press conferences, thanking each other for their swift response. They patted themselves on the back while families clutched photographs of missing loved ones still waiting for answers. But one journalist refused to play along. And I got to tell you about her because I'm very proud of what she did. Her name is Stefania Jimenez. She's an anchor at KSAT in San Antonio. She said what too many of us wouldn't. She said it with her full chest on live television. She called out the political theater.
But I don't know what it is about people who run for federal office that whenever disasters like this happen, they take it upon themselves to first list all the names of people that they want to thank. Not what we want to hear right now. What we want is actual information. That is what the people of Kerrville and all over the Hill Country are waiting for right now. That was a lot longer than it needed to be. If they don't have the latest information that they can give us, they should have said so. My point is that they spent way too long thanking each other. And this is something that is bipartisan. We see it whenever there's a disaster. Doesn't matter which president is in office. For some reason, federal leaders tend to thank each other for a long time before they tell us what we actually need. And my point is that I'm hoping this is the 5th news conference that we have had since we have had this disaster happen yesterday. And what people want is information, because we know that there has been a lot of questions that continue to be unanswered. They can't even tell us right now exactly how many people are missing. And we understand why. The 4th of July holiday weekend, there were a lot of people there that are unaccounted for. We don't know. A lot of people were camping there. So it's not just the people of Kerrville proper who live there. Just a lot of people were visiting that area. So we don't know exactly how many people are missing. But my point is that when we hear from leaders again, and I believe there's supposed to be another news conference taking place later on this evening.
Yeah, I think it's 6 o'clock.
I hope that they give us more information that we can use, because people are on pins and needles waiting for information about their loved ones.
Well, and
Boom. There you go. That is journalism. That is what people need right now. That is courage. But where are the others like that? What happened? Where are the others like that? Because she's only telling the truth. And no one can fault her for this. But the administration, they're probably going to threaten the station. She may have gotten to talking to you. I don't know. I'm not there. But where are the others? Where is the national media outrage? Where are the anchors demanding resignations, demanding accountability, demanding humanity? Where are they? We'll get to them in a moment. First, a word from our sponsors. Support for the Don Lemon Show today comes from ZBiotics. And I have to tell you about this game-changing product that I use before a night out with drinks. It is called pre-alcohol, okay? ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists who tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in your gut. It is that buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration, that is to blame for rough days after drinking. So pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. So I've used it before, a couple nights out with them margaritas. Hey, I felt my best the next day. And so I'm so glad I took it. So I gave it a try, started this summer, and it's been a game changer for me. I felt great the next morning. So make sure you take a prebiotic, go to zbiotics.com, go to zbiotics.com/lemon drops, zbiotic.com/lemon drops to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use lemon drops at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with a 100% money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. That's pretty amazing, everyone. So remember to head to zbiotics.com/lemon drops and use the code lemon drops at checkout for 15% off. Never use anything alcohol or anything like this without your doctor checking in with your doctor. Okay. So check it out. Thank you to our sponsor, ZBiotics. Now let's get back to this. So that moment that she displayed right there was a moment, as I said, of courage, was a moment that all journalists need to pay attention to. So where is the national media outrage? Where are the national anchors demanding and reporters and journalists demanding humanity? This moment is all too familiar. I remember Hurricane Katrina, not from the sidelines, but from the front lines. I covered Hurricane Katrina. I did it live. Back then, the media didn't tiptoe around government failure. They ran toward it. Ted Koppel on Nightline, grilling FEMA's Michael Brown. Anderson Cooper, remember, in the streets of New Orleans, furious at politicians who dared to try to spin him. Joe Scarborough, yes, Joe Scarborough, slamming government incompetence. Even Bill O'Reilly weighed in. Bill O'Reilly, of all people, told his viewers plainly the government had failed. You remember the reporters standing out there calling people out? They were seeing things that the officials weren't even talking about. And journalists didn't flinch from the uncomfortable truth. Much of that suffering was about race. They showed America's cruelty, and they did it in real time. They showed America's cruelty in real time. Black people stranded on rooftops, demonized as looters were trying to survive, I should say. They were just people in dire straits. They were desperate. Mothers cradling babies in the Superdome, elderly women dying in wheelchairs while helicopters hovered overhead. If not for the media, we would not have known this. If not for the brave reporters, not just reporting the news, but telling officials to get their shit together. And they said it on the air. These were not criminals. These were human beings. They were abandoned by their government. So where is that moral clarity right now? Today, too many media executives are too busy courting Donald Trump and his allies to notice or to care about the damage being done. They're meeting with him in secret. They're chasing access. They're bargaining away their integrity for clicks and for ratings. And yes, some journalists are complicit too. They know what's happening. They know they're being told to soften their language, to avoid divisive words, to play it safe. That's not what these times demand. And too many are afraid to speak up, afraid to lose their jobs, their platforms, their place at the table. But I'm here to tell you, that's the job, everybody. That's what journalism is about. That's what anchors and reporters and producers and whatever, that's what you're supposed to do. That's the price of admission in this business. That's what it used to be, at least. And if you're not willing to pay it, you don't belong there. You don't belong here. Otherwise, you're just another heck of a job, Brownie, waiting to happen. Now, imagine if a heck of a job had never been challenged. The Trump administration has created this climate of fear. They've done it deliberately. They're slashing agencies. They're weaponizing others, threatening media licenses, and pushing networks to fire or silence the journalists who dare to stand up. But you can't protect democracy if you're afraid of losing your job. You can't hold power accountable if you're too busy kissing the ring. You can't tell the truth if your bosses won't let you, and you won't walk away for telling the truth. The journalists who covered Katrina wouldn't survive in today's newsrooms. They'd be told that they were too emotional, they were too biased, that they were too bad for business. It's a business decision. It's a business. That's the excuse. But you know what's really bad for business? And that's cowardice. It's bad for the media. It's bad for democracy. It's fatal for the people drowning, literally and figuratively because of it. The journalists of Katrina weren't perfect, but they did what mattered most. They cared more about the truth than their careers, and that is what's missing today. Until that changes, until media owners stop groveling and journalists stop cowering, this country will keep sliding deeper into disaster because the floodwaters are rising again. Let me know what you think in the comments. Check it out on Substack. Go to donlemon.com and click on Substack. And make sure while you're there, check out our merch as well. donlemon.com. You can check out all of our content. There are links to all of our content, including our merch store, on the website. Thanks for watching.